Bonjour, French 1. Time for your chapter test over the section 2.2, which would mean the second half of chapter 2. This study guide will help walk you through exactly what to expect on the test and has lots of the questions from the actual test right here for you. First section of the test is actually having you match an activity, which will be written in French, with the place where that activity is done, which will also be written in French. So in order to help you practice, I actually have you writing out the places here in French where you would do these activities. But again, don't stress, you won't actually have to be able to spell them on the test. This is a matching section. But just to practice, you have to know that lire means to read, and you would do that à la bibliothèque, at the library. You have to know that jouer aux cartes means to play cards, and a place where we learned you can do that is the MJC, which is the recreation center. You have to know that jouer au baseball means to play baseball, and you would do that at le stade, the stadium. Voir un film is to see a movie, and you would do that at the cinéma, which is the movie theater. Nager is to swim, you would do that at the piscine, the pool. Manger is to eat, you would do that at the cafe or restaurant. Faire les magasins is to do shopping, you would do that at the centre commercial, which is the mall. And étudier is to study, you would do that at the lycée. For the second part, you're actually going to see a picture, like a drawing, on your test. And based on what you see in the drawing, you're going to have to say whether these statements are true or false, and the statements are written in French. So it's about being able to read and understand some full French sentences and say whether or not there's a boy and a girl in the picture, whether or not they're at a park or a movie theater, things like that. So these are some of the sentences or things like what you will see on the actual test. Let's go ahead and go through them real quick. C'est un parc means it's a park, as in you'll look at the picture and say true or false. Is that a park or no? Il y a une piscine means there is a pool. Un garçon et une fille jouent aux cartes means that a boy and a girl are playing cards. Ils jouent aux échecs means they are playing chess. Un garçon et une fille aiment faire des pique-niques means a boy and a girl are having a picnic. Un garçon et une fille aiment nager mean a boy and a girl like to swim. Il y a un café means there is a cafe or a restaurant in the picture. And ils aiment manger means they like to eat. On part C, they're actually going to give you 3 choices to fill in the blanks, but they're not going to tell you what the choices mean in English. So make sure that you know that A means and, mais means but, and ou means or. And then you'll have to be able to read the sentence and choose the one that would actually make sense. Just a quick tip. If you see the first half of the sentence talking about liking something, and then you see the second half of the sentence saying something different, or if they talk about liking something but preferring something else, you're almost always going to use the word but. If you don't see a second clause to the sentence, if you don't see another I like this or I don't like this, and it's just 2 activities listed, it's probably going to be and. And usually when you ask a question is the only time when you use or. Usually if it's a question, you say things like this or that. So if you keep these clues in mind, even if you can't read the whole sentence and understand it, you could probably figure out the right answer. But we'll go ahead and talk about what these sentences mean and why I filled in the word that I did. So number 1, it says, I love to go out, blank. I don't like to go to the movies. So in English, you would say, I love to go out, but I don't like to go to the movies. The word but in French is mais. For number 2, if somebody says, do you like to read? Tu aimes lire? If you say yes, and then there's a blank there, I prefer to watch TV is what that sentence says. So in English, you would say yes, but I prefer to watch TV. So mais, again, for number 2. Number 3 says, j'aime nager, blank, danser, which means I like to swim, dance. Only word that would make sense there would be and, as in I like to swim and dance, which is the word a in French. Number 4 says, do you like to eat? Talk with friends. That blank would need to be filled in with the word or to make it make sense. So tu aimes manger ou parler avec des amis. For number 5, they have I like to listen to music. I don't like to dance. So they're trying to get you to say, I like to listen to music, but I don't like to dance, which would be j'aime écouter de la musique, mais je n'aime pas danser. Number 6, I like to go out with friends to see a movie. I like to go out with friends and see a movie. J'aime sortir avec les copains et voir un film. And then finally, for number 7, tu préfères sortir, dormir. Do you prefer to go out or to sleep is what they're saying here, and the word or is ou. Again, they will give you your choices and the directions, but if you don't know what they mean in English, this section could potentially kick your rear a little, so make sure you take the time to learn what those mean in English. Part D, they're going to give you the choices for the 4 different A words, as in the 4 different versions of to or at, to fill in these blanks. I want you to remember that when you see these choices in the directions, one of the ways that will best help you get through this section successfully is to work through the choices backwards. What I mean by that is, first thing I want you to check is if you can use the word o. O gets used anytime you've got a plural word after the blank, meaning that it's more than one. Usually that means it ends in the letter S. If you check for that and that's not the case, the next thing I want you to check for is whether you can use L apostrophe. Time when you use L apostrophe is when the word after the blank starts with a vowel. If you check for both of those and neither of them is the situation, that's the only time when you should have to have the debate between la, which is feminine, and o, which is masculine. And again, you just have to have that memorized at that point, or make your best guess. You got a 50-50 shot at that point, or look on other parts of your test and see if you can find some information to help you out. So on number 1, when I'm looking at the word lycée, and remember on every single one of these you're just looking at the word after the blank, I first ask myself, is lycée plural? Because if it was plural, I could use O-A-U-X, I wouldn't have to think anymore. Unfortunately, it's not. The second thing I want to look for is whether it starts with a vowel. Again, we're not lucky here, it doesn't. So it comes down to knowing whether high school is masculine or feminine, and it's masculine, au lycée. Going to work through those same couple steps on piscine with the word for pool here. It's not plural, so it's not O-A-U-X. It doesn't start with a vowel, so it's not L apostrophe. You just have to know that pool is feminine, so it's à la piscine. Same thing happens with cinema. I won't repeat the steps, but it comes down to knowing whether it's masculine or feminine, and cinema is masculine, au cinéma. Now, on number 4, a lot of people get tripped up because they say it starts with a vowel and it ends in an S. So make sure that you're working backwards through those choices. Start with asking yourself whether it's plural first. That'll always keep you on the right track. The plural part is more important than the fact that it starts with a vowel. O-A-U-X is your answer for that one because students are plural. High school's on here a second time. You must really need to know that one, folks. Don't forget, high school is masculine, au lycée. If you want to say at the stadium, again, if you work through your steps, it's not plural, so it's not A-U-X. It doesn't start with a vowel, so it's not L apostrophe. You just have to have memorized that it's O, which is basically the masculine form of to for stadium. Cafe is also masculine, so you go au café. And bibliothèque is feminine, so you go à la bibliothèque. For part E, there will be a listening section, and sorry, I got cut off over here on the side. Basically, you're going to hear a reporter interview some students about their likes and dislikes, and you have to decide whether the student says that they A, like it, or B, dislike it. So just as a quick review, some things that you would want to listen for in this section. One of the new things that we learned were adverbs, and they want you to assume that if a person does something often or from time to time, that they must fairly well like it, whereas if they do something rarely or never, then they're probably going to dislike it. So if in the course of these interviews you hear somebody say something like, je joue au foot de temps en temps, I play soccer from time to time, you are to assume that they like it. If, however, you hear them say, je joue rarement au foot, they're saying, I rarely play soccer, and you're to assume that they dislike it. If you hear them say something like, je ne joue jamais au foot, they're saying that they never play soccer, and again, you're supposed to say that they dislike that sport. So do make sure that you're reviewing those adverbs, and that'll be one thing that can clue you into the right answers during this listening section. The other thing is are those old friends of ours, the words for I like and I don't like and things like that. So don't forget, if you hear somebody say j'aime something or j'adore something, they are saying that they like it. And if you hear them say je déteste something or je n'aime pas, those are of course ways of saying that they dislike it. Last section is a reading section. Basically, you're going to have to answer some true-false questions about some reading, pretty basic stuff. That's usually how it goes. But as always, I wanted to throw some things at you that I thought might catch you off guard. Some of these are just phrases. Some of these are sentences. Keep in mind that when you take them out of the context of the overall reading, it makes it much harder to understand. In the context of a paragraph that makes sense, it actually makes it a lot easier. So don't get stressed if you didn't know these right off the bat. It's just a quick thing to jog your memory. So if somebody says, on aime étudier au lycée régulièrement, literally it says we like to study at the high school regularly. I know I put it in a slightly different order there, but it's because in English we don't really talk like that all the time. You can, but we don't. Faire du sport is to do sports. Aller au café is to go to the, aller au parc is to go to the park. Aller au café is to go to a cafe or restaurant. If somebody talks about what their activité préférée is, they're talking about their preferred or their favorite activity. So be careful. That's one phrase that usually catches people off guard. Élèves français are just French students. Don't let that throw you off. Faire les magasins is taken directly from the section. It's to do shopping. On n'aime pas aller au centre commercial means we don't like to go to the mall. Souvent is the word often. De temps en temps is from time to time. Jamais is never. If they say that on aime something, they're saying that we like whatever that thing is. If they say on préfère, they're saying we prefer. Faire un pique-nique is to do a picnic. Voir des films or to see movies. And la Maison des Jeunes et de la Culture, known as the MJC for short, is of course the Recreation Center. Again, as always, we'll watch this video again together in class. If you had any major questions, jot them down out to the side so we can make sure we get those answered before you take your test. Also, make sure that you actually read back over this and study any parts that seemed unfamiliar, or replay the video for those parts to help yourself kind of review this so that you can ace this test.